Welcome back. Today we are going to talk about the big news of GameStop now.
Guys, I may have a little bit of a problem. For the life of me, I cannot stop talking about GameStop. It's gotten to a point where it's getting a little bit concerning. I haven't talked about something more than probably since my ex-wife, okay? And dude, I talked about her a lot, okay? I still can't see my 2 kids after the divorce. It's tough. It's tough life, man. I'm just kidding. I have no ex-wife, but maybe I do have some kids somewhere. I don't know. But anyway, let's talk about today's topic. We're gonna be talking about GameStop yet again. However, this is mainly going to be centered around somebody talking about GameStop, which I don't really agree with that very much. Who am I talking about? Well, if you guessed Nostalgianomics, you would be incorrect. I'm not talking about it. I'm just kidding. Yeah, it is Nostalgianomics. And recently, he just dropped a video about the whole news about how GameStop is now selling on whatnot. Now, his title is a little bit sarcastic, okay? That's not what he thinks, unsurprisingly. He's actually in full support with what GameStop is doing on their just absolutely splendid endeavor to scam, to go on whatnot, not scam viewers. Who would, GameStop would never do that, right? Right? There were a few points in Nostalgianomics' video that I would like to address, okay? Now listen, I have nothing against Nostalgianomics or Alex. I think he's a solid guy, okay? I have nothing really against him. I just disagree with him on a lot of different stuff. But hey, both of us have a right to state our opinions as long as it's respectful and constructive. And that's what I plan to do here. So let's move on to the first clip of Nostalgianomics' video.
They are sitting on some of the highest cash reserves on Wall Street. Like, they have hundreds of millions of dollars in cash. They could operate that company at a loss for, decades and not go out of business at this point because of the cash they have on hand now.
Okay, so I want you guys to remember that little bit right there. That little segment about how he was explaining how just massive of a corporation, how rich GameStop is. I want you to remember that segment as we move on to the continuation of that clip, okay?
GameStop has the ability to negotiate with companies like Pokemon or even distributors to get large, amounts. Also, they have that brand recognition where the average person, the average parent, grandparent, someone who's new to collectibles feels comfortable walking in. So they have the brand recognition to start to kind of expand that, become more of a game store. Maybe, I know some stores already have like tables set up. They're going to be hosting gameplay, all those good things, right?
So his position is basically saying that GameStop now can afford to branch out and become a little bit more of an LGS. But in my personal opinion, I don't think that is branching out or evolving. That is practically devolving. Local game stores, that is their dream to become a corporation like GameStop is. And I think what a lot of people have a problem with is that a major corporation got to their position because they were offering a service or a product at a significantly lower rate than their competitors. That is exactly why people go to these bigger corporations, because on average, they were able to accomplish just that. And when you have a multi-billion-dollar franchise, in Nostalgianomics' words, and they're practically selling the product at the same exact rate as these smaller little LGSs, it raises a lot of eyebrows, and rightfully so. So you mean to tell me that a multi-billion-dollar franchise with hundreds of stores around the US, if not the world, I'm not too sure if they're kind of around the world. I'm pretty sure Australia has a thing called EB Games. But you're telling me they're that big and they're still offering a very similar price tag to some unknown local game store that barely can turn on their lights and pay their bills. Logistically, it just doesn't make sense. People, and rightfully so, they hold GameStop at a way higher standard than a lot of these other places.
All I ever hear is how people are worried about getting scammed online. Not just live streams. I'm worried about buying on Amazon, Alex. They might be opening my boxes and resealing them. Enter GameStop, right? You're worried about all those things, right? You're worried about, Joe Schmo in his basement. You're worried about that? Guess what? You don't have to worry about that with GameStop. GameStop is not going to be trying to scam you out of a few dollars to reseal something, right? They're going to have margins built in. They're going to make their margins. They're going to do the evil corporation thing. They're going to actually make money. They're gonna have employees do it.
I just find this whole segment just a little bit humorous to me, because how do you know that? How do you know GameStop isn't going to be litigious and try to scam people? Because if you didn't know, when GameStop live streamed on Whatnot, it's not like GameStop, hired different individuals to get the job done. No, they hired an already established Whatnot account to do the work for them. They basically just outsourced the work to another Whatnot seller. And guess who that Whatnot seller is? Apparently, and this is what I didn't know in my last video, but apparently they were involved in a lot of shady stuff. That Whatnot account had previously hired somebody that actively resealed packs. So you mean to tell me that there isn't a chance at all of people getting scammed, even though GameStop is practically just outsourcing the job to other sellers who have been involved in controversies themselves? Yeah, there's no possible way that this could go wrong, right? Absolutely not. And even if GameStop is completely squeaky clean, okay, let's say they hired a bunch of people to do the work for them and they were doing a stupendous job, it still doesn't change the fact that they're on a platform that actively harbors scammers. Let's say you have an incompetent buyer that goes on Whatnot just because they heard GameStop is on there. They are now in the near vicinity of possible scammers, which endangers them. That's why a lot of people don't want to go on Whatnot, because not only does you yourself look bad for just being associated with that platform, you are also endangering your audience because they could get scammed on the site. And while it's not your complete responsibility what your viewers do after they come to, your channel or whatnot, you still openly promoted that platform. So you should have some sort of moral responsibility, don't you think? And hey, if Whatnot really wants to dive into these, online selling shtick or whatnot, whatnot, that was a little bit ironic. But if they truly wanted to go, on that avenue, hell, brother, just put an actual live streaming application on your actual website. How about you build it? Actually, if they truly wanted to, make a whole brand new website for other people to go on. That would be actually genius. GameStop, I'm giving you some good ideas. Hell, even go to Drip, even though I've heard some sketchy stuff going on there. I'm holding off on that though. But needless to say, that going on Whatnot is going to raise a lot of people's eyebrows. And saying that there isn't a possibility of GameStop buyers getting scammed on that site is just simply incorrect. There is definitely a possibility because GameStop is outsourcing the jobs to other individuals who previously have been involved in some sort of controversy. And I even talked about this last time, but the first live stream that GameStop did on Whatnot in partnership with another Whatnot seller, they practically blatantly lied to the audience, saying that something is MSRP even though it wasn't.
We are flashing 50 of these at MSRP. At MSRP. At MSRP.
At MSRP.
The very first live stream, those people are already lying to you. So don't you think it's not too far-fetched to say that, hey, you know what? If they're willing to lie to you, don't you think that they're willing to scam you to some extent? I don't know.
It's just the people that, again, are against corporations, against profit, against, big guys coming into their space, all these things. You're going to hurt the little guy. Look, I am a live streamer. This is part of my business, right? They're in direct competition with me. I mean, it could definitely have an effect on my business eventually. But I still think it's an overall good for the hobby because there are a lot of people out there that are a little scummy. They're maybe not brand new, but they're newer. They can't really get their hands on a lot of product. They're in and out.
You're totally right. A lot of people are afraid of getting scammed and being the victim of a litigious and scummy seller. I am so worried about the buyer's safety that I'm going to direct them into that app. Such a brilliant idea.
If GameStop literally succeeds and becomes this kind of nationwide LGS, and they kind of set a market price nationwide that they sell at all their stores, and then they stream at a price and all that stuff, and then, obviously we have other large corporations out there, it'd honestly be a net positive because it would force everyone to kind of sell around that market price, and you wouldn't have all these stories about people feeling they got ripped off. Like, Alex, I bought this box for $225, but I see this guy, now I could have got it for $200, and there's all these boxes here at $175, and I see here at $250. I don't know what to buy, or the $175 one's fake.
This is just incredibly out of touch, in my opinion. When he says, oh, this is gonna be beneficial for the hobby, I don't think so. To who? To whom? The people selling the actual product. This is not beneficial for the average consumer. It doesn't matter that they're now aware that all GameStops are selling at market price. That knowledge is useless because at the end of the day, they are still paying more. This is beneficial for the people that are selling products at market price. This is not beneficial for the average consumer. If this was happening in the drought of Pokemon, when products and boxes were like at $90 each, I would agree with you. I was like, okay, yeah, this is great. I'm glad that GameStop is selling booster boxes at $90, but now it's completely different. GameStop wants to make more money, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying that people expect way more out of GameStop. In my interpretation, it looks like GameStop is practically devolving. They started from the top, and they're just slowly coming down to the levels of a local game store. Even though they have so many connections with Pokemon themselves or other distros, they are practically selling at the same rate at a normal Joe game store. That's why people are angry. People are like, what the frick, GameStop? We expect better from you. And to be honest, I can't blame people for thinking like that.
Whatnot as a platform, they built a great platform to stream on, right? And so the issue is the people on Whatnot, the bad apples here and there that have tarnished the entire name, and then obviously the poor management to not take swift action on those individuals quick enough, right? There's nothing wrong with the legitimate people that stream on Whatnot that always do good business, that take care of their customers, that are very clear about what they're selling, for how much, selling legitimate product, not doing the reseal thing, all that stupid stuff. And so for GameStop to sell on Whatnot, it is a legitimate company selling on a legitimate company's platform. I don't see any issue with it. I really don't. I think it'll be an overall net positive for the hobby.
Now, I'll give credit where credit is due. He did bring up the fact that there is a lot of illegitimate sellers on Whatnot who are scummy. But he is just so very close to the common sense answer here. The fact that there are illegitimate sellers on the platform, that's the freaking problem of associating with that platform. Yeah, guys, this company is well known for harboring scammers and also very well known for not doing anything about it. You know what would be a great move? Let me go to that platform. If you are a legitimate seller, props to you. It doesn't change the fact that there are a lot of shady shit going on that platform. If you truly want it to be squeaky clean and have a good reputation, it's best just to avoid that place. And this could go for a lot of big creators as well. I've seen a few on that platform, and regardless, even though personally I know they're not doing anything wrong, I still think it's just a bad look of associating themselves with that platform. I'll use the same example that I did in my last video. Imagine yourself walking on a street, and beside you, you have a bunch of stores. 90% are legitimate stores, but the 10% now, well, there's a chance that they're gonna scam you. Don't you think as a customer, when you're walking down that street, regardless of which store you're going to, you are going to be hyper aware and you're gonna be very skeptical because you don't know which store is in the 90% good and which store is in the 10% bad. It's just common sense, man. It really is. But anyway, that's all I really wanted to talk about. I just thought that this video was just a little bit goofy. No hate to Alex. I'm just giving my personal perspective on it, okay? I respect his opinion and the courage he has of stating his opinion, even though it is very unpopular. I respect that, okay? I respect it. But anyway, that's pretty much about it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you later, weebs.
せーのでもそんなんじゃ